Okay, here we are again. I'm the organic mechanic with Kelp4less, and on the other side there is the undisputed hydro weight champion of the world, Harley Smith.
Everybody,
Hey, we were talking earlier. Need to have a little interesting discussion. Talk about the difference between growing in soil and growing hydroponically. And this isn't a butt heads. Which one's better? Which one beats? Which one's wins? Because we know you can kill it in hydro. You still get the high bricks in hydro. You can still get the minerals in hydro, and that's your specialty. I'm more of a soil guy, um, dealing with the biology and the microbes and the mineral holding capacity of soil. And on the other end of the spectrum is Harley Smith on precise dosing of nutrients. And both methods of growing are great. Let's just kind of talk about the difference between the two.
okay, okay. I guess
Yeah,
I guess I'll
fire
kick
it
I'll
off.
kick it off. I'll kick it off with to me, when I look at what's the main difference between soil and hydroponics, it's that it has to do with the form of minerals. Plants are take up minerals in their ionic form. Those are very tiny electrically charged particles, either soil or in hydroponics, as far as the minerals go, okay, the essential elements.
Mhm.
Now, the main difference between, organic fertilizer, say, and hydroponic fertilizer is plants can't take up large organic molecules. They're just too big. So they have to be broken down by microorganisms in the soil. They're through digestive enzymes. They're digested into smaller and smaller and smaller particles until they're in their ionic form, and that's the form that plants take them up. So in soil, you're you're feeding the microorganisms basically. It's, this is really basic, but in hydroponics, you're bypassing the microbes and directly feeding the plants because in hydroponics, the minerals are mined from the earth and then they're processed into their water soluble ionic form, and then we feed them to the plant in a perfectly balanced form. So in some ways, I look at hydroponics as creating the perfect soil, but as far as mineral balance. But
Okay.
not just the perfect soil for mineral balance, but the perfect soil for each stage of the plant's growth, because you can make changes. During the vegetative growth stage, you can do proportionally more nitrogen. During fruiting and flowering, a little less nitrogen, a little more phosphorus, potassium. And you can spoon feed. You can find out exactly what the limiting factor is with your plants in your environment, and you can spoon feed, give them exactly what they need when they need it. So that to me is the main difference. As to the plants, the minerals look exactly the same, but there's a whole different strategy in growing when between the two. So that to me is right off the top is what I consider the main difference.
Yeah, yeah, makes total sense. And in the soil world sort of things, I'm more comfortable with uh, the ability that the soil has to store those minerals and to hold those minerals over time, where the plant roots can tap into them and absorb them. And so, one basic thing that is different is, from my point of view, is hydroponic. You need to be on the ball. You need to have your program. You need to you follow through. There's no taking days off. There's no, you know, letting things get out of balance. Where soil is a little bit more forgiving, and with the
Mm.
ability for it to store some nutrients and let them exchange over time. And I still like to use hydroponic fertilizers in soil, and I like to do some slow release organic minerals to amend the soil in most of our soil grown plants, especially in potted plants or raised beds and so on and so forth. And so, uh, for people that take your class, your hydroponic class, which you have one coming up here
Nice.
shortly. I think you're doing a basic starting a basics hydroponic course, and boy, I'd recommend people really look at that and take that course because that teaches you all the basics about hydroponic, but a lot of that can apply in growing in soil as well. And I think soil just gives you a little bit more time and flexibility, and it's a little bit more forgiving to overcome accidents or some mismanagement practices. I think it's the main key on my side.
Yeah, that's good. It's in soil you want a fairly high cation exchange capacity. That's good, so that the minerals are held, they don't just get leached away. In hydroponics, we want a very low cation exchange. We want almost zero. Rock wool has zero cation exchange. Perlite, zero cation exchange. It doesn't hold on to any minerals. But in hydroponics, we can do recirculating systems. So the water and minerals flow over the roots so the plants can take up the minerals and water it needs because it's 100% available. And then we capture the runoff and then run it over the roots again, and then run it over the roots again. So we always have the minerals in available form. Where in soil, the roots have to go. We're bringing in hydroponics. We're bringing the water and minerals to the roots. Okay, where in soil, the roots are going out, are spreading out to mine the minerals in the soil. So literally in hydroponics, we develop less of a root system than you would in soil because they don't need to go exploring for roots, so they don't put
You
the
got
energy
lazy plants, Harley. The plants are
in.
lazy. They just wait for you to give them everything.
Yeah, but you get a instead of getting the deep tap roots in hydroponics, which you don't see that much of, you get a lot of more fine feeder roots, like a sponge. So the plant development itself adjusts to the strategy that you're giving them. So anyway, the zero cation exchange, and that's why philosophically I'm against drain to waste hydroponics. I say,
Hmm.
well, that's one of the big benefits. You can capture the runoff. You can do a little bit of, even if it's short term, a couple of weeks, just use the same water and minerals, and you just put back in what the plant takes out. But when you're going drain to waste, it's a waste. You're losing some of the benefits of hydroponics. So I think that's one of the differences. The cation, like you were talking about, the stored minerals, you want
Hmm.
that. But where in hydroponics, you really don't need. In fact, you don't want nutrients to get locked up
Hmm.
in the one
Exactly.
medium.
Exactly. One thing I'd love to amend our soils with and our growing beds with is zeolite. I like you know, the really small sized zeolite. It kind of looks like grains of rice or small, really small rocks or stones. And the cation exchange capacity of zeolite, it's it's huge. And so that just gives my soil a little bit more capability to exchange those nutrients and store those nutrients over time. You don't have to have it, but it is a great mineral capture, and it's also a great home for microbial populations,
Mm.
and it
Hmm.
and it stores water. So uh, I don't know if we've talked about zeolite very much, but it is
Not
a
much.
great thing to amend your soil with.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, we should talk more about zeolite one of these days because
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that in soil because even as the water is flowing through there, because there's little pores in that, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, they're
Hmm.
tiny, 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 tiny. If you look at it under the microscope, but all kinds of different shapes, so they almost look like snowflakes, sort of to me. Because
Yeah.
there's all these little pores that the water can flow through, and as the
Yeah.
water's
Tunnels
flowing
going
through there,
everywhere, like tunnels
yeah,
going everywhere through that.
all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as the
Uh-huh.
water is flowing through there, it holds on to some of the minerals, and then they're exchanged with other minerals mainly for hydrogen ions that the plant exudes from the roots, or the microbes do, and then it makes those minerals available back to the plant again. So yeah, that's great. The other thing though, with the difference to me is pH. in water, especially like RO water, reverse osmosis, has zero buffer for pH. The pH can go up, can go down. Some of the other water sources, city water or well water, has a little more buffer. But soil is a buffer for pH. If you can get your soil right at the beginning with your pH, it tends to stay there. It doesn't really change a lot. It's kind of locked in. But in hydroponics, especially if you're using pure water, the pH can go up and down. So I have to literally in hydroponics check the pH every day,
Hmm.
um, and make adjustments. Where in soil, once you got it there, you really don't have to change it much unless the structure of the soil tends to to leach out some of the elements or something. But it's rare. Mostly pH is just kind of locked in, correct? In
Well,
soil.
in container gardening and manufactured soil or raised beds, yes, you can get that perfect environment pH with amending and other additions where it's a controlled soil bed. Out in agriculture,
Mm.
it's impossible to chase pH. Um,
Mm.
you have to use nutrients that will not get tied up in different pHs of soil and agriculture. So, out west here, we have really high pHs, 8.5,
Mm.
8.6, a lot of eights out there. So we use a lot of acidic fertilizer for nutrient delivery to the plant. And and adding the sulfur is a big practice and all that stuff. But you know what? Year after year, the pH of the soil never changes. We,
Mm.
we for instance, we out here, there's a practice to, desiccate your plants by just foliar spray applying sulfuric acid,
Mm.
98% sulfuric acid. They spray that 20 to 40 gallons per acre and it just desiccates the plant. And by the way, sulfuric acid, it is a hazard toxic substance unless you're targeting plants in agriculture. Then it's okay to spray however much you want. Anyway, won't get into that. But I've seen fields that have 40 gallons of sulfuric acid. The pH is exactly the same the next year as it was the year before, even after all that acid applied. So in agriculture soils, you need to learn how to farm and work the soil with the pH you have. You're not going to manipulate it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's here in Michigan, there's farmers. It's the opposite. It can be acidic in some areas. So
Hmm.
I know there's some farmers that add limestone by the ton, by the truckload, and it's still not enough
Yeah,
to get into the right zone. One of the
yeah.
things with hydroponics is we're just adding just a tiny little bit of phosphoric acid, or the commercial growers maybe a little combination of nitric acid and phosphoric, and just that small amount. You can just you get your pH right at 6.0 where you want it. You can keep it in the range between 5.8 and 6.4 all the time, pretty easily. It never really gets much out of there. And that's kind of important for some of the trace elements. You start
Yeah.
getting up to the alkaline, you get up above 6.5 even. That's still acidic. Anything below 7 is acidic. 6.5. Get above there, iron starts to become unavailable. You get above
Hmm.
7.5, that's barely alkaline compared to what you're talking about in the eights. And then
Hmm.
iron, copper, manganese, zinc, they all start to become pretty quickly unavailable to the plant.
Hmm.
Um, they're the transition metals. But here's a good thing too, though. With we both know if you can get really good microbial action going with the biostimulants, and the microbes are really multiplying fast in the root zone, they will help lower the pH.
Hmm.
They can literally, the root zone, the rhizosphere, can be 3 points lower than the bulk soil. So I found that when I started doing experiments with biohydroponics, the pH was up a little bit on the high side, even in the hydroponics, because the microbes were balancing things out. And but the plants were fine. there wasn't any signs of iron deficiency. They looked great because it's really the interface between the microbes and the root cells where all the activity happens. That's where the action is. The bulk
Yeah,
soil helps feed into it.
yeah, and we've touched on that topic quite a bit. All our discussions seem to always end up talking about some certain things, but I've stressed in the past that you know you really can't manipulate pH on a large scale, but you know what? The plants and the microbials can. And so, exactly what you said, they control it. They're going to control it. So, it's important to have that biology. It's important to have those biostimulants. And it's important to have other food sources for the biology in the soil when there's not plant roots feeding them, to try to help keep them active. Because when those seeds germinate and it starts putting roots down and the microbials colonize towards the roots, that's when the magic happens. Your pH is going to the plant and the microbes are going to adjust the pH in its root zone, and it's going to do its job, and that's just how it is. There's no way
Yeah,
around that. That's the only way to adjust pH is let the plants and the microbes do
they do it, and they know how because obviously plants are growing in all kinds of different soils, all kinds of different environments, and they're able to survive.
it. Hmm.
So how do they do it? They've learned. Well, I guess here's something that I think of too. When people are asking me about strains to grow or something like that, they want to grow outdoors instead of indoors. We can make it in any environment. We can grow lemon trees in Michigan if we want to. Not that that'd be pretty extreme, but because you can create a tropical environment. But when you're growing outdoors, you're at the the mercy of nature. So I say in that case you want to choose the genetics for the environment.
Hmm.
Indoors you choose the environment for the genetics. So you got to you got to look at where those plants came from, where they originated from. Do they grow in acid soils? Do they grow in alkaline soils better? Are they adapted to that? And then, as a grower, make some decisions. Make a few compromises that really give you as a grower the benefit. I think, So,
Yeah,
uh,
goes back to setting yourself up for success. Do a little bit of
yeah,
research, get a little bit of information from local people in your area that are doing these type of you know growing operations, and learn from them, and talk to them. You're absolutely right. Variety, the, picking the right variety is essential to success.
right. For outdoors, yeah. Farmers, of course,
Hmm.
they better do that if they're going to make a living. You choose some varieties that are subject to disease or they're not suitable for your environment. That you're not going to live very long. You're not going to be able to support and be sustain uh, some profit in those conditions. So yeah, there's no substitute for good genetics, whether it's indoors or outdoors. Now there are some things we can do. You know, I'm going to give you an example too. Outdoor hydroponics that Sue and I did many years ago when I was first experimenting with biostimulants. She was growing. This when she had cancer, and she wasn't allowed to teach because she couldn't be around kids because her immune system was down, was
Hmm.
lower because she was on chemotherapy. You know. So anyway, uh, as you probably know, Sue is not the kind of woman that can just sit around and feel sorry for herself. She was, yeah, she no, while she was on chemotherapy, she was literally building a small greenhouse in our backyard by hand with power tools. She, yeah, and we set up we started growing romaine lettuce in hydroponics outdoors, but we had to grow outdoors because the greenhouse wasn't done yet. Um, anyway, we chose a variety. Went down to the drugstore and they had some seeds, and they had Paris Island Coss, and that was just an old-fashioned romaine lettuce. It wasn't. bred for more resistance or anything. And we found out later that from the commercial guys, oh, you can't grow parasilane costs commercially because it's genetically susceptible to tip burn. That's
Hmm.
a calcium deficiency. They said you're going to lose 40 to 60% of your crop to tip burn. You
Oh,
can't do it. But we didn't know that. but I was first experimenting with biostimulants. It was an amino acid blend with kelp and some B vitamins. It was just this blend I got from a vitamin manufacturer out east. And you know what? It helped so much. Tip burn is calcium deficiency. I had zero tip burn. And we were growing such high quality romaine lettuce that every store and every restaurant that saw it or tasted it bought it. Not one no, and they at 20% above premium price.
hmm.
So here it was. The genetics would tell you, oh, you can't do that. But because, I guess by a little bit of luck, actually, thank, thank you, nature, for your gift. Um, we found a way to improve the uptake of calcium, eliminate tip burn, and get gourmet quality, hybrid off the chart. We just kind of
That
turned
is
because
great.
the plant had a susceptibility, but by working with nature, and just by accident, we were able to overcome that genetic limitation because it really wasn't the limitation of the genes, it was a limitation of calcium uptake. Anyway, but there
And
again,
see, that is a great story. I mean, that is a fantastic success story. And I love hearing stuff like that. And so you didn't know all this information until after the fact. Everybody was saying, how are you doing that? It can't be done.
I know, they would say, Harley, you're a genius. How did you figure this out? Well, it was just really good luck. I happen to have very hard water that's loaded with calcium and magnesium, really hard, you know, and I used, like those biostimulants. And it was funny though. Here's a funny part of the story. I got this stuff in, this blend from out east. It was a really, it was a concentrate too. It was more concentrated than it would. You dilute that down 5 times just to make a concentrate. That's how concentrated it was. But you open that up and said, "Oh man, this smells like this doesn't smell good. It smells sort of like you know, broccoli or Brussels sprouts right on the edge of going bad." I go, "Oh man, I don't know about using this stuff." So, but I just got it in, and Sue was just starting this garden out. And I looked around. Oh, Sue's not watching. I'll just put a really little bit in there, you know, and and I just hope it doesn't kill the plants. It shouldn't kill them. It should be put a little bit in there. And then I walked by a little bit later. I could smell it. I went, "Oh no, Sue's going to catch me for sure." Um, but I looked at the plants. Are they okay? They were already like in one day. The first day, they were already looking better to me. I mean, not huge, but I could tell they liked it. And over time, they just were doing really, really well. But so I confessed to Sue, I put in 15 milliliters, in this 40-gallon reservoir. Um, and then after that, I walked by and I didn't smell it at all. It's like, okay, the microbes have used it. It's done its job. It's done its chelated all the nutrients. I'd add just a little bit more in between, but I only mainly added at reservoir changes. That was it. Put in fresh water, fresh nutrients, add a little bit of my nutrients, hard water nutrients, adjust my pH, add a little bit of the biostimulants. So yeah, there it was.
I, I have a similar story. My wife loves hanging baskets in the summer. Absolutely loves them. And we have a lot of them. And she's always, don't water them. Don't put any more fertilizer in them. Just leave them alone. I've got this. So I have the same thing. I have to wake up early, go around, just grab a little teaspoon of extreme blend, just dump the dry powder in the pot or in the hanging basket and move on to the next. So when she wakes up and goes around and water, I've got my stuff in there. So yeah,
Wow.
about every 2 days, I'm sneaking around adding something to our plants, and they look beautiful. And she does it too. I mean, she fertilizes them. But I mean, I'm the organic mechanic. I got to do something. I gotta I gotta water with dirty water is what I call it, you know. And so I'm always sneaking stuff in there too. So this will probably get me in trouble. But I hear you. I do it too.
Yeah, just to me it was an experiment. But you usually don't experiment on somebody else's crop, but it turned out okay. Well, it turned out more than okay, and it was I got some clues from that that led to some new discoveries that have really got the white jacket. So it all paid off in the end.
Yeah, you got the white jacket on. Yeah, whatever you say, Harley, we're gonna trust you on this one. Yeah, you got the white jacket, the
Up for
Kelp4less
less.
jacket. I know. That's great. That's great. Well, we better wrap it up. I know sometimes we get carried away and go forever, and I know we're limited on time. So I hope you have a good week, and I hope you don't get any flooding.
There's flooding in the area, but I'm good. We have good drainage here, really good soil. We have really good soil, good drainage, good aeration, and we're up a little bit on a hill, slightly, so we're good. But anyway, thanks a lot, and I will talk to you this week sometime, and we'll come up with a new subject for next week.
Okay, Harley, we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.